Welcome back to Comics with Drew. I'm Drew, and this is another Comics with Drew in the Car video. Yay! Super exciting, right? I wanted to take a moment to talk about an image that I saw across my Twitter feed today. Yeah, that was my first mistake, going on Twitter. Sometimes you gotta take one for the team, right? So, recently there was a controversy about a comic book called King Conan. And in issue number 3 of King Conan, they introduce Pocahontas. Well, King Conan is about Conan the Barbarian, obviously. And Conan, everybody knows, is famous for being a barbarian with all of these hot women who barely have any clothes on, if they have any clothes on at all. The problem for Jason Aaron, the writer of King Conan, is that a bunch of people who are Native American were super pissed off because Pocahontas is here and she's barely wearing anything. And so these people are very, very upset because Pocahontas was young when she was kidnapped by the English in a territorial dispute with the Jamestown colony in Virginia way back in the 1600s, right? So she's famous because she learned English and she helped the relations between these two groups of people, the Native Americans and the colonists. And a lot of people revere her for her historic significance. Fair enough, right? She's an historic figure. So people get mad when someone puts Pocahontas in a King Conan comic. Obviously. Well, I'm not really that upset about it because of the fact that it's obviously a fictionalized version of Pocahontas, and clearly Aaron was trying to pay homage to her, but people are very upset about this, right? But that's not really the point. The fact of the matter is that he comes out and he apologizes and goes, my bad, I shouldn't have done this, it's terrible, oh well. And so Marvel comes out and says, you know what, we're going to fix all of this, right? We're going to change the references to her name because they're using a personal nickname that she had. And then I didn't know that they were going to do this. They come back out and they change the art in the book. And so here you go. Here's the original one on the left, and here's the new one on the right. Can you spot the differences? So I'm like, okay, I don't believe that you should censor your art. You should have the balls to stick with your art that you're putting out there. And the reason I say this is because there are plenty of other different people that are fictionalized for comics and movies and TV shows. It's always going to offend somebody, okay? Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is going to offend somebody, I am sure. There's tons of different iterations of Jesus that are fictionalized that people get pissed off about. But places like Marvel doesn't care about that. They're totally fine with it. But man, if you do something on Pocahontas, oh my God, all bets are off, right? So I'm thinking, this doesn't really help things, right? But what this reminds me of, aside from the fact that it doesn't really help things to change the art, what this really reminds me of is this looks like something that my super, hyper, very, very fundamentalist religious mother would have done. And I just find that funny because in the 1980s, in the 1990s, I couldn't read comic books because all the women were barely clothed. There's not much left to the imagination. And so my mom was super vigilant about making sure that none of those things were inside the house, right? It's so funny because now you've got people on the opposite side of the spectrum engaging in the same thing. Because it used to be in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, it was like, how dare you censor art? And that was totally okay. All these left-wing free speech advocates pushing the limits with art. And now we've done 180 degrees. And the people that were previously, defending offensive art to, religious people are saying that, you know what, how dare you do this thing with Pocahontas? We're going to make sure that we change this back because you're offending us. And I'm like, look, I'm on the side of art. If you're going to do art, art's going to be offensive, kind of like speech. Speech is going to be offensive. In fact, the speech that's offensive is the speech that needs to be protected the most. Why? Because no one needs to protect popular speech, guys. Right? That's the point. And nobody needs to protect popular art. That's the point. When you're doing something that is artistic, it's something that needs to be protected. A lot of things are going to piss people off. Fair. I understand. But maybe, instead of getting pissed off about it, stop taking it so seriously. It's obviously a fictionalized version of Pocahontas, in a Conan comic. And if you're mad about what's in a Conan comic, my question to you would be, why are you reading a Conan comic? I don't really understand that. It's like being mad that people are drinking in a bar. You go in a bar, people are drinking. Oh my gosh, how could this possibly happen? Well, they're in a bar. If you're reading a Conan comic book, you're going to see art like this, right? And obviously it's not really Pocahontas, guys. Let's move on, all right? Let's move on from this. It's not the real Pocahontas. I would suggest that this is actually an opportunity for people who read the comic and discover Pocahontas to go research the actual real Pocahontas and learn about all the different wonderful things that she was able to accomplish in a very, very difficult time. And don't make her look like a Native American from a 1950s Western, all right? Also, I want to point out, look, now she's got a blue hat. We go from the feathers to the big blue hat. We really want to make this politically correct, guys. So she doesn't have blue hair, but she's got something blue on her head. So we know that, she's sufficiently woke. So anyway, that's my Comics with Drew in the Car video of today. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.